Hi guys, welcome back to the next Travel Tip Tuesday. Again, I missed last week, but busy schedule. I can't put these out every week, so I'm doing the best I can. But today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest things that everybody wants to know about for traveling, and that is how to save as much money as you possibly can. So in this video, I'm going to give you about 10 tips on how you can save money while traveling. So tip number 1 is save money on flights by getting a credit card that earns you frequent flyer miles. So flights are one of the biggest expenses when you're traveling, and at home, whether you're living your normal life and you travel during the summer, or you are on the road full time, whatever it is, you spend money. No matter where you are, what you do, you still spend money. So the best thing for me, I recently just got a credit card that's associated with an airline, and I put all my charges, everything in my normal life on that credit card, and I am earning frequent flyer miles connected to that airline. And eventually I have enough miles to get me a free flight to one of my next trips to a faraway destination, and usually the flight is one of the biggest expenses while you're traveling. So by getting a credit card with frequent flyer miles, you can eventually save money on a future trip by getting almost a free flight using the frequent flyer miles with that airline. So tip number 2 is to reserve a flight for a midweek day. For me, usually the midweek days tend to be the cheapest when it comes to airfare prices. Due to most people working during the week and having off on weekends, more traveling occurs on the weekends, which is why travel companies increase their flight prices, because there's more of a need for those tickets. So if you reserve a spot on a flight, make sure it's for a weekday, and if you can get off work early, get a weekday flight, because it'll save you a few $100s when you're booking flights to a location. So tip number 3, before you book any flights, do your research and make sure you're traveling to a relatively affordable location. Certain places around the world are more expensive than others, and by doing research before your trip, you will know if you're going to an expensive spot or if you're going to an affordable, cheap spot that you can travel to easier with less money. So tip number 4 for saving money while traveling is to reserve most of your reservations far in advance, whether that's your flights, your car rental, your accommodation, those sorts of things. I found that further in advance you book, the more affordable it is. And you don't always have to do that, because if you're going on a spur-of-the-moment trip, I also found that if you book flights and reservations, stuff like that, 2 weeks prior to your trip, they are also get better deals, and they're cheaper because the companies are trying to get rid of the remaining inventory on their flights and their rental cars, so they are bringing the prices down so more people rent them. So book far in advance or really, really close to your trip. The only issue with booking really close to your trip is that you're never sure if you're 100% gonna get a spot on a flight or get a rental car or get a hotel room. So I always found planning far in advance keeps me at ease and keeps me more comfortable, because I know that I have my spot, and it's a little bit cheaper than booking like a few months, like 1 or 2 months before your trip. So tip number 5 is to use public transportation in the location that you're traveling to. Certain places don't have the best public transportation available for people, but if you're in a city or if you're traveling to a well-populated country, use public transportation. It'll definitely save you a lot of money when it comes to renting a car or getting a flight from place to place. If you get a bus or you get a train, that usually tends to be much cheaper than a personal rented vehicle or a flight. So tip number 6 is to stay in cheaper accommodation while you're traveling. For me, I like to camp, and I found that camping is one of the cheapest accommodations when you're traveling. On my road trips, I camp all the time, and I save a lot of money by not going to the hotels and things like that. Other cheap accommodations include Airbnbs and youth hostels, which are spread around Europe, around America, everywhere. You can find an Airbnb, which tend to be more affordable depending on the size of spot that you're getting, and youth hostels are basically a cheaper version of a hotel, and it's essentially a dorm room hotel with more people than just one in one room. So those are camping, Airbnbs, and hostels I found that are the most affordable accommodations rather than staying at a luxury resort or a hotel. So the cheaper accommodation you stay at, the more traveling you can do, because the less you have to pay to sleep somewhere. So tip number 7 is to skip going out to eat. Going out to eat is one of the biggest expenses when you're traveling, because you want to enjoy the destination and sometimes you want to go out and get some local food, stuff like that. So you can still go out, but my tip is going to grocery stores and you buy meals, and it's cheaper to prepare the meals yourself rather than going to a restaurant where they charge you much extra because they're waiting on you, things like that. It also saves you from paying tip and a bunch of other expenses that you will save on while buying meals from grocery stores and things like that you prepare yourself. I also found that preparing your own meals while traveling is helpful in the way that you can be much more flexible. You don't need to set out a reservation for a restaurant. You don't need to make sure you're going to a restaurant in its open hours. You can cook for yourself whenever you want if you have a spot that you can cook, or if you can prepare a meal, such as a campground or an Airbnb or something like that. So tip number 8 is to skip buying souvenirs. When you're traveling, you know you want to see the cool bits and bobs that you want to buy, but for me, as a photographer, and for most travelers out there, I personally like to take photos as memories instead of souvenirs as memories. When I was a kid, before I even got into photography, I would 100% get souvenirs. And if you want to buy souvenirs for family members or stuff like that, by all means do so. But don't get stuff for yourself. I prefer taking photos as my memories, and I go look back at my photos from that trip to remember my good times on that trip rather than seeing a little trinket on your countertop. So tip number 9 is to talk to the locals when you arrive in your destination. Local people know the best prices, the best places to eat, the cheapest adventures, and the cheapest things to do while you're in their area. So by talking to locals, you get the inside information on where you should go to eat to save money, on the best places for an adventure, or the cheapest activities to do while you're traveling to their destination. And so tip number 10 is to spend more time in fewer locations. This is a big money saving technique for me because I found that the transportation in between one location and the next is the most expensive part of the trip, such as the airfare, the rental car, or the bus rides or the train rides, whatever it is always the most expensive part of the trip. So I found that spending more time and really seeing places while you're there, spending more time in one location helps you to enjoy the experience more. You don't need to be rushed around, missing your flight or stuff like that. So you get to experience the location better, and you save money because you're not physically traveling as much when you're in a destination. Take my Iceland trip as an example. We were there for 10 days and we moved locations almost every single day that we were there. If I had cut out half the spots that we had gone to, we would have been less stressed and less tired, and I probably would have gotten more photos from each location, and it would have enjoyed my trip a little bit more because I wasn't rushed around or stressed, and I wasn't doing as much physical traveling between place to place, driving long hours or whatever it was. So yeah, guys, that's it. Those are my 10 tips for saving money while traveling. If you enjoyed the video, definitely subscribe down below, like the video, comment down below. Let me know if you want to see any other tips, and let me know if it was helpful for you and if you got some information from this video. But if not, then I will see you guys in the next video, and I'll talk to you then.